Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, 25 years serial tech entrepreneur. My new book, Fail Hard, Win Big, has come out here in July 2025. This is my story of having 30 ventures with 20 of them failures, but 10 of them being big wins. The common element in every venture I've done is I've always built software around the operational processes to create unique client experiences and to raise enterprise value. The book tells my story of the good, bad, and the ugly and how I've learned through those failures. I am also the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We are a nearshore custom software development company. Today, we are joined from Dan Sloan out of Phoenix, Arizona, where I am, where it's 111 degrees outside, but we're both in our air-conditioned home offices. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Steve. My air-conditioned home office is struggling to keep up with
It is hot out. Now, Dan, you are a guy who understands process, how to implement software. You're the founder of the Dan Sloan Effect. Please give everybody, our listeners, a few-minute overview of the journey of your career.
Yeah, sure, Steve. And when you said 25 years, recently I was speaking at an event and somebody introduced me and they talked about my decades of experience. And when I heard that, I'm like, wait, slow down. Like, I am a young guy. There's no way I have decades of experience. And then I realized, oh, no, I do have decades of experience.
Yes, I get it. We've turned into the old guys.
Yeah, the old guys. So I'll brief on my story is I've been an executive at companies that have implemented ERP systems. I've been an ERP consultant, have either implemented personally or been responsible for ERP implementations, 60 or 70 of those. I've recently been a director of IT and a CTO for a couple of brands out of California. And then now I'm in my final iteration, Unleashed, as the founder of the Dan Sloan Effect. And I'll say my philosophy for the Dan Sloan Effect is my philosophy of what I've done as an executive the same way is what I realize is most major implementations suck. They're super painful. They're tough to negotiate. The process of implementing for both sides, for both the implementer and the company that's implementing, is tough. It's tough to come out of it. I tell this story a lot. I have an amazing relationship with my wife, Amy, but I was married once before. I have also done 2 software ERP implementations as an end user. I count those 2 software implementations as more painful than the divorce that I went through. So
Yikes.
Yes, yikes, exactly. So what I realized is it took me a long time to get to this point. As I implemented as a consultant or as I implemented internally as a company, I realized that we were doing it backwards. Is that always there was a solution that was provided to us by a company. The executives would say, yes, this is the right solution for us. This is going to solve all of our problems. There would be a discovery that would happen before that would be with a VP or a C-level, or maybe somebody in accounting would do that discovery. The teams would configure the software, they would deploy it, and nothing would work properly. And then you just go through a series of UAT, pain, UAT, deployment, go live, and then years of trying to fix that problem.
So Dan, and you have decades of experience like me. You've been in a lot of different roles. Would you classify yourself as an ERP expert? Like, what's your main bread and butter?
Yeah, I used to think of myself as an ERP expert. I mean, that's there's a certain ERP NetSuite that I've got tons of experience with, and I would consider myself an expert in that ERP. But what I've realized as my career has progressed is that even though if you know specific information about an ERP or a specific ERP, that systems are ultimately the same. Because the main thing of a system is a system should serve the people that are working for it. And then when you think about systems and people together, what you realize is that what you're really trying to serve is a process. Not to go into, all this, Steve, I'm not lecturing to you about this, but basically how business works is you have inputs. Like, it's really simple. You have inputs and you have outputs. And then in between the inputs and the outputs are the throughputs. And the throughputs are your people and systems. And what I have learned is there is friction in the throughputs between systems and people. And the VPs and the executives are experiencing that friction in that they're not getting the outputs that they want. But the real problem is the people that are having to interface with those systems to get the processes done, those are the ones that are experiencing the pain.
So your company is called the Dan Sloan effect. What is the Dan Sloan effect? There's got to be a good story of that name.
Yeah, the story of the Dan Sloan effect, it really comes from things that people have said to me and I have several examples of them. And one of them is, it's a combination. Like one person says, gosh, everything got better when you were in the room because I look at everything together. I don't just look at the tech problem. I want to understand what the actual purpose of being and looking at this process is. And I want to understand what the people are experiencing there too. So that's why I get better. There's two other reasons why it comes. Also, when I've left companies, people said, gosh, as soon as you walked out of the room, everything got immediately worse because my presence wasn't there. And I asked about that one specifically. That was what was the most interesting. I'm like, it's nice to hear that everything's better when I'm in the room, but I'm really interested to hear why everything is worse when I leave. And this is the answer that I got is, once you left, whenever we were brainstorming a solution, we would come up with a suggestion and somebody would say, no, we can't do that. And that was the end of the discussion. And now the brainstorming is over. Like we can't figure out where we're blocked. Whereas what I do is when somebody says, we would like to do this, even if I know technically we can't do it, I say, interesting. Tell me what that means. What would it look like if you did that? Where are you trying to get to? Because maybe we can't go through the front door to get what you want, but maybe we can sneak around the corners or go to the back door, or maybe there isn't a door and we're spending a lot of time trying to open a door. Maybe there's an entirely different way to get to it. So I also say I make the impossible possible because I don't believe that anything is impossible. I don't say no to anything at the beginning.
Well, I'll tell you, Dan, and hearing you talk, when you look at the CTO, CIO role, it's almost an impossible job. You have to lead and implement tech. You have to quantify existence to non-technical executives, board members, investors, and there is a lot to go through. And hearing you talk through how you map out process and how you do it is something that I joke, you do it wrong enough, long enough, and you figure out how to do it right. You don't just tell people no, but you really try to drill down into what they're really looking after, especially non-technical people trying to describe what they're looking for in software. Sometimes can be like pulling teeth. Sounds like that's been your niche of problem solving beyond just the technical level, but the business level as well.
Well, that is the key. Like you're right. It is an impossible job, which is why you need a wizard. You need somebody that can conjure up some magic to be able to do it. You need a magician to be able to do the impossible. And it's the idea of like, I'm not really making the impossible possible the same way a magician doesn't make the impossible possible, but you don't know the difference as long as it looks like
that's right.
To you. Like that's the magic too. And
so
yeah.
Dan, let's talk about some current projects you're working on.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, there are a couple. So one of the main things that I do is when I get tasked with a specific project, is I want to start from the ground up and not the top down. I don't want to start looking for a solution. I want to understand how things are working today. And so the biggest thing that I'll do, I have a company that I'm working with, a fashion brand. And the problem is, like, if you go down to the root of the problem, and Steve, you will know this, like, this is the problem that when you talk to a CEO, this is what they will say the problem is. I do not have any confidence in my systems to be able to achieve the goals that I want to this year. Like that's the big problem that's on there. And so then yeah, you got it. And they want to attack it from the top down, is like, clearly we have the wrong systems in place. And so let's do a systems audit and figure out which system is the wrong one. And then we'll go out and evaluate, and we'll find the latest SaaS and we'll buy that system, and then we'll plug it in, and that will fix everything, which I can see you smirking. You know, that doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're going to go through another painful implementation. It's not going to integrate with anything. You'll go to the next one. So what I'm working with this company is, let's figure out let's figure out what your inputs are for your process of your business. Let's figure out what your real output that you want to be. And then let's take a look at those throughputs and see where the most friction is. Like, you tell me where things are getting held up and getting stopped. And so in this case, it's they're creating product, understanding how they create product and how they buy product. I'm not making it, no trade secrets here. A typical problem for fashion companies is predicting how much inventory to buy. A typical problem for probably any consumer goods company, but fashion in particular, because it's seasonal, you have to have a full size run. You can't only go out and have a large or an extra large. You need to have a medium and a small, and make sure that you've got it the whole time. So understanding that is the process. So then what I do, this is what I would do, is like, I'm not going to just say, let's find the best system that solves that problem and use somebody else's solution and try and cram it in there. Let's get the people in the room that actually do the work for understanding how much we're going to buy and the people that are going to be selling that product. And then let's all start with a blank wall. We stand shoulder to shoulder and let's map that process out from its trigger to its final outcome and have an abstract visualization of what the process is that we can all look at it. And it's such a amazing process when you do this with a company for the first time, because all these different teams and silos, they have never seen their process end to end visualized like this. And I didn't create it for them. They created it themselves too. So it's like a religious experience for them.
Let me ask you a question, Dan. I am a guy that loves whiteboarding, getting people in a room. I need the visuals, but in this world of remote, you don't always get that opportunity. And I haven't seen a good virtual whiteboarding tool that compares. How do you go about that? The power of getting people in a room and whiteboarding and getting that direct. I agree, magic can happen. How are you attacking that in the remote world when you can't get everyone in the room?
Such a great question. And I will say, like, I love working out of my home office. Like, I am 100% believe that I am just having a better life working out of my home office, which also makes me more creative and energetic, which means I deliver better work out of here. On the other hand, I love people and interacting with people at the same time too. So I see both sides of it 100% sure. And I will say this too, is remotely is hard to keep anybody's attention for an hour. Like, that is a difficult
It is.
time to do it. And especially like when I come with you, or when I'm making sure that I'm focusing on somebody, like, I turn off my alternate screen, I turn everything off so I can't be distracted by it, because it's too easy to be pulled off of. But if you would imagine, like, these workshops, I need 8 to 12 of, we call them the believables, the people that you go to when you want to ask a question about a certain part of this process goes. So I need to get 8 to 12 people focused for really a full day so we can go through and map this process end to end. And I really think the best way to do it is physically in the room. We're talking, we're rubbing shoulders against each other. We're breathing in each other's biomes, all the things that magically that happen in person. And this is my recommendation for teams that are mostly remote is, hey, if you want to get people together for team building, if you're mostly remote, but you want to get people together for team building or some other reason, like, when you have them together for team building, let's map out a process in person, because it is the best form of team building.
I agree. Let's say, you have a new client, they're trying to implement a complex SaaS ERP, and they're not giving you the option to get in the room.
Yeah.
How are you attacking that?
Well, so two ways. One way would be, I'd be like, hey, this is the most important thing that you will do this year, and probably the most important thing you will do in the next 3 years. Let's get in the room, man. Like stop giving me that excuse. And you need to show everybody that it's that important. But yes.
I hear you, but sometimes they're going to say, shut up, I'm the client, I'm not going to do it.
So I do have there is a tool that we are developing, actually, that we're going to be showcasing. I think we'll actually have the first cohort to go through this tool on Friday. So that will be able to do it remotely. And it's pretty good. It's still better than not mapping the process out. You don't get all of the magic of like that shoulder friction and people reaching up on the board and changing stuff around, and maybe a little bit of spirited discussion that happens during those processes, which are actually the best thing that happens. But this is the other thing. I think you can tell from my presence. I can tell from your presence. I'm actually really good at getting people excited remotely as well too. So we can do it. It takes a lot of my personality to be able to do it. And then it just goes slower, because when I do these in-person workshops, we're spending a full day and we're working the process end to end. When you're doing a remote, 2 hours, like maybe you can keep somebody, like if you're really good and they're really motivated, maybe you can keep their attention, but you're doing it an hour at a time, like over the course of several days or weeks to be able to get a good process map.
So, Dan, as we're halfway through 2025, it's certainly been an interesting and challenging year in tech, been a challenging 18 months in tech. AI is changing daily. What's the biggest challenges you're facing right now?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge that I see, kind of what I talked about, systems are not scalable for business needs and they end up being the bottleneck. So that's the first issue. The second issue is most companies now, or the companies that I'm working with, all of their solutions are SaaS, which is great in lots of ways because they don't have to manage servers or virtual servers or any of that connection for it. Like that part is all amazing. Unfortunately, these SaaS contracts, they have a built-in increase of 5 to 15% every year. And if you want to avoid that, maybe 15% increase and get it down to lower than that, then the leverages sign a multi-year deal that's on there. The last company that I was CTO for, we had 87 separate SaaS platforms to manage. Wow. And so you can imagine, if you think of one of the functions of IT is we are HR for SaaS platforms. And so we're responsible for that quote unquote employee lifecycle of that tool, to manage those tools, the relationships, the integrations between them, the renewals, not to mention the shadow IT. Anybody with a credit card can add a new SaaS tool to your environment that you may or may not know about, depending on how well you're monitoring what is on employee laptops. That alone becomes a full-time job. I have another one. If the other big issue that I see as well too, it's an issue of priority for IT teams is priorities are constantly changing. And I think that's the disconnect between the non-technical people, the executives, and the IT people is it just takes a certain amount of time and concentration to complete certain projects. And the non-technical people are not always aware of it. So I like to call it it's the raccoon syndrome. The next shiny thing that they see, they want the IT team to execute that. And so there's a constant bombardment of varying priorities that are being put on IT teams. So it's up to IT teams to figure out how can I avoid saying no to the executives, but still be able to keep my work focused in a way that I'm able to perform and get the projects done that I need to, and also without losing my mind.
In the world of ERP systems and implementations, how is AI changing or evolving that space?
Yeah, I think it's going slow, Steve, honestly. I don't think it's going as fast as I'd like to see it. And I think it's going to really shake up some of the major players in the ERP. It seems like what I see in ERP at AI systems is trying to slap in some AI into the ERP to say, oh yeah, it does.
Just to have that check mark.
Exactly. Just to have the check mark. And then the executive is like, oh yeah, our ERP has AI. And then you look at it and it's like, it's got an LLM based into the sales description field of the product. And like, yeah, sure, that's helpful, but I could just use ChatGPT for that. Like it's already like, I don't need that to be in my ERP. I really think the next thing that will happen out will be true AI ERPs that will really give you information, insights as to what you should be doing next or taking action on those. I would love to see it. Like I'm seeing some tools that are coming out in the integration space where they're self-healing in AI integrations. I think that will be the next thing. But I'll be perfectly honest, I have not seen anybody integrate AI in a meaningful way in an ERP yet.
So what do you think is one of the biggest myths right now about working in AI?
I don't know if this is a myth, but the idea that AI replaces people is a myth right now. And I use AI.
I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, I think it's evolving roles and responsibilities, and people that don't evolve with it, I think, could be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, you and I we have our decades of experience, right? So
how old we are.
Yeah,
come on, Dan. Is that the Dan Sloan effect? What the?
That's the Dan Sloan effect. But we have seen, you and I have seen and been firsthand and seen so many different paradigm shifts that have come through, right? Like, I mean, the internet, right? Like obviously that's a huge paradigm shift that was there. I mean, graphical interfaces, right? Like how that did
When the cloud came,
when the cloud
which
came.
people had this
Yeah,
myth of what it was, and I'd always explain all that means is it's somebody else's data center. It's not sitting on your prem. That's what the cloud is.
yeah, the cloud, SaaS, like true, the evolution of the cloud into SaaS, mobile tools that we use, so many different things, and so many different things. Like, oh, this will revolutionize and change it. And I mean, to a certain extent, like that's what ERP does to a little bit. You don't need as many people that you might have needed in a period of time with the ERP. But we're lean now. Like teams are lean at this point right now. So
No doubt, everybody's expected to do more, leaner teams.
Mm-hmm. So you're not going to bring AI into a company now and then just be able to let a bunch of people go because AI is going to do their jobs. Like the teams are too lean for that to happen.
Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta, made a pretty bold comment. It was about 2 or 3 months ago now that within 5 years, he believes with AI, he'll be able to get rid of 60% of his engineering team. I call bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to be a AI innovator, so he's got to say that. You know, my take is, especially when it comes to developers, let alone other roles, but roles are definitely evolving. And you jump on the train and you evolve with it, or you could be left out. But AI is still not replacing human thought, human logic, and that sanity check that a senior person can bring to the table.
Well, that is a lot of the, like, when I think of, sometimes there is a period of time I'm like, well, yeah, I could do what I do, like, because really a lot of what I do is not super technical anymore. It's really finding out how a business works and figuring out the places where it needs to work better. And that's on there. But and I'm not saying that AI could never do that, but first of all, it's going to need hands and thumbs is going to be one portion of it. But B, it's also going to, like, this is the other big issue that when I talk to executives that they talk about, when I talk about they don't have confidence in their system, they don't have credibility and trust in their systems. And I feel like it's going to be a long ways before, oh man, I could be wrong. I'm contradicting myself in this sentence, Steve. Like, I feel like it should be a long time before you could put full trust into an AI to allow it to run your business. Maybe people will be willing to give it that trust early, but I don't think it's going to be the competitive advantage that they think that it will be. Where I do see AI, and I use it all the time. I am constantly using it. I do see it as it makes me more than, like, it gives me extra ability. It does some of the things well that I don't do well, and it gives me a way to accelerate what I do. But it's the same kind of thing. So you can see in my background, I have a samurai sword there. I keep waiting for you.
I was going to ask about that.
So I have a samurai sword. There's several stories behind it. One story is, the reason I have it is because I used to be addicted to watching cable shopping network years ago after going out on the town. And you can look it up on YouTube. This is an Easter egg for anybody. Like, if you go onto YouTube and look at like home shopping sword injury, and there's a guy that's selling samurai swords, and he smacks the sword on the table and the blade comes up and it hits him in the chest, and live on home shopping, he was stabbed by his own sword. And later on, I got to work for that home shopping company. I did their IT for them, and I got to meet that guy, and he sold me that sword. So that's
funny. So, Dan, as a guy with decades of experience, what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
That's a really great question, man. For specifically as an IT person, or specifically, really, actually, no, for anything, you are smarter, stronger, more powerful than you think that you are. Gosh, this is we're getting a little deep here, Steve, but we all have that little voice in the back of our heads, that nagging voice that tells you that you're in over your head, that you're not as good as you think you are, that maybe you don't belong in the place that you are. And what I've realized is that voice is a liar, a little bit. It might be trying to protect me from getting hurt, but it is not true. So if I have no regrets about my life, but gosh, if I had known that voice was lying much earlier, I would have things would have been so much easier for me, honestly. Yeah.
So be bold. Don't let that little voice hold you back.
Yeah, exactly. That voice is wrong. It's trying to protect you, but it is wrong. Like, you are much more powerful.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for getting uncensored with us today.
Yeah.
A lot of good concepts covered. I'm glad you didn't have to take out the samurai sword for the interview. Thanks for being on. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. Stay bold and keep building, everyone.
Thanks, Steve.
That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.